a long, gentle tale for a peaceful night. Far beyond the rolling green meadows and the quiet silver rivers, nestled between the softest hills, there was a little village called Starwood Hollow. It was the kind of place where time moved slowly, like the drifting petals of a dandelion caught in a breeze. The houses in Starwood Hollow were made of warm stone and wood, with roofs covered in moss and chimneys that puffed out curls of smoke like lazy clouds. The streets were lined with lanterns that glowed softly at dusk, casting golden light upon cobbled pathways. In this quiet village, where the scent of lavender drifted through the air and the night was never too dark nor too cold, there lived an old storyteller named Elera. Elera had silver hair that fell in gentle waves past her shoulders, eyes the color of the twilight sky, and a voice as soft as a feather drifting upon water. Every evening, when the sun melted into the hills and the first stars blinked awake, she would sit in her rocking chair on the porch of her little round cottage and weave stories for the villagers. People young and old would gather around with blankets draped over their shoulders, cradling cups of warm honeyed milk or spiced cider. They would listen as Elera spoke, her voice blending with the whispering wind, carrying her tales into the night. She was called the Star Whisperer because her stories were always about the sky. She told of constellations shaped like great ships and ancient trees, of moons that carried the dreams of sleeping children, and of stars that could hear the wishes of those who longed for something more. But one night, as she sat upon her porch gazing at the vast, endless sky, something unexpected happened. A tiny, shimmering light drifted down from the heavens like a falling snowflake. It twirled and spun gently, landing ever so softly in the palm of her hand. It was no bigger than a pearl, glowing with a silver blue light, and it gave off a hum so quiet that it was more felt than heard, a soft, sleepy melody. Elera cradled the little star in her hands, feeling the warmth of it against her skin. "Oh, little one," she murmured, "have you lost your way?" The tiny star flickered, its light pulsing weakly, as if too tired to shine. She held it close to her heart and whispered, "Rest now. Tomorrow we will find your way home." She carried the little star inside, where the air smelled of lavender and old books. She made it a small nest out of the softest wool and placed it by her window so that it could still see the night sky. Then she sat beside it, rocking gently in her chair, watching over it as it pulsed with faint light. Outside, the stars shimmered as though calling to their lost friend, and a hush fell over the village, as if the whole world was waiting. The journey begins. In the early hours before dawn, when the sky was a deep indigo and the village was wrapped in slumber, a soft breeze curled through Elera's open window. It carried the scent of distant rain and whispered through the room like a voice made of moonlight. "Elera, keeper of stories," the wind murmured, "a star has fallen, and it must return before the night fades. The sky is waiting." Elera opened her eyes, feeling the gentle weight of the little star beside her. Its glow had grown fainter, its hum softer, as if it were drifting into a deep sleep. She knew what had to be done. Wrapping herself in her warmest shawl, she carefully lifted the tiny star into a silk pouch and fastened it around her neck. It felt like carrying a small ember, warm but delicate. She stepped outside into the hush of the night. The village was quiet, bathed in the glow of the lanterns that never fully went out. The cobblestone streets were cool beneath her feet as she walked past the baker's shop, where the scent of rising dough lingered in the air, past the tailor's shop, where unfinished quilts rested by the window, waiting to be stitched together. Beyond the village, the land stretched into rolling meadows where wildflowers swayed and fireflies blinked like tiny stars caught in the grass. She followed the path toward the tallest hill, where the sky seemed closest to the earth, hoping to find a way to return the little star home. As she walked, she spoke softly to the star. "Do you remember the sky, little one?" she asked. Do you remember how you used to shine? The star pulsed faintly, as if trying to remember. And so she told its stories. She spoke of the great river of sky, where stars drifted like boats on a quiet sea. She told of the moon guardian who watched over the night and carried the dreams of those who slept. She whispered of the constellations, how they formed great shapes, wise owls, soaring dragons, and ancient trees whose roots reached deep into time itself. With each word, the little star glowed a tiny bit brighter. The night deepened, and the world around them grew quieter. Even the wind hushed, as if listening, the sleeping forest. As Elira walked, she entered the sleeping forest, a place where the trees were tall and ancient, their leaves shimmering like silver in the moonlight. The air was filled with the sound of gentle rustling, as if the trees themselves were dreaming. A soft mist curled along the ground, and in the distance she heard the hoot of an owl, low and melodic. The forest was known to be a place of rest. Birds slept in their nests, rabbits curled in their burrows, and even the river that wound through it moved in slow, sleepy ripples. Elira moved carefully, her steps quiet upon the mossy path. The star in her pouch paused softly, as if lulled by the peacefulness of the place. She reached the heart of the forest, where a great tree stood, its branches vast, its roots deep. It was said that this tree had listened to every story ever told. Elira placed her hand against its bark. "Will you help us?" she asked softly. The tree did not speak, but a single leaf drifted down, glowing faintly. When it landed in her palm, she felt warmth spread through her fingers, a quiet reassurance. She knew then that she was on the right path. The little star shimmered just a bit brighter, as if sensing the truth in the old tree's silent wisdom. And so she continued her journey, walking through the hush of the sleeping forest, carrying her tiny light toward the sky. Elira walked deeper into the sleeping forest, cradling the little star in her silk pouch, feeling its warmth against her heart. The trees whispered in the night breeze, their silver-tipped leaves rustling like distant lullabies. Soft mist curled along the path, swirling around her ankles as if guiding her forward. The tiny star flickered faintly. It was still weak, its light pulsing in slow, sleepy waves. It needed to shine brighter before it could return to the sky. Elira had spent her life telling stories about the stars, but now she was living one. She paused beneath an ancient willow whose branches draped like curtains, trailing across the forest floor. The great tree's trunk was wide and knotted, its bark the color of moonlight. It had stood in this place for longer than anyone could remember. Elira placed her hand on the tree, feeling its quiet hum beneath her fingers. "Wise one," she murmured, "how can I help the little star find its way home?" The tree did not speak with words, but a single silver leaf drifted down, twirling lazily in the air before landing in her palm. The moment it touched her skin, she felt a quiet warmth spread through her fingers. A memory not her own filled her mind. She saw a river, but not one of water. This river flowed with stars, gliding gently through the heavens like tiny boats on an endless journey. She knew its name then, the River of Sky. This was where the little star belonged. She also saw the way to find it. A path hidden beyond the hills, leading to the mirror lake where the sky and earth touched. Elira smiled softly. "Thank you," she whispered. She tucked the silver leaf into her pouch with the little star and stepped back onto the path. The forest sighed, as if content, the firefly's song. As Alera continued, the forest began to thin, opening up into a meadow bathed in soft moonlight. Wildflowers swayed in the cool night air, their petals glowing faintly as if drinking in the starlight. A gentle hum filled the air, a sound as soft as distant chimes. It was the song of fireflies. They floated all around her tiny golden lights, flickering in slow, rhythmic patterns. They circled her, dancing in the air, drifting like whispers caught in the breeze. The little star pulsed inside the pouch. It recognized the light, the quiet glow of kindred spirits. Alera paused, watching as the fireflies moved in graceful spirals, as if painting invisible shapes in the air. Slowly, she reached into her pouch and cupped the little star in her hands. The fireflies gathered closer, their golden light blending with the silver glow of the star. Their soft hum grew louder, a lullaby of light and warmth. And then something wonderful happened. The little star pulsed brighter, steadier. It wasn't flickering anymore. It was listening, remembering. Alera smiled. "You're learning how to shine again, little one." She stayed with the fireflies for a long while, letting their gentle song fill the night. The star was still small, still fragile, but its glow had grown stronger. When it was time to leave, the fireflies lingered, drifting behind her like tiny lanterns lighting her way. The Mirror Lake. The path led her beyond the meadows, past quiet hills that rose and fell like gentle waves. The air smelled of dewy grass and distant rain, and above, the sky stretched vast and endless, painted in deep indigo with thousands of tiny, flickering stars. And then, at last, she saw it, the Mirror Lake. It was a place of stillness where the water was so calm, so perfectly smooth, that it reflected the entire sky above. Looking into it was like gazing into another world, one where the stars floated not just above, but beneath, surrounding everything in quiet, endless light. Alera stepped to the water's edge, kneeling in the soft grass. The tiny star in her hands pulsed warmly. She could feel it now, the pull of the sky, the longing to return to where it belonged, but something was missing. The little star was still small, still not quite ready. Alera thought for a moment, then, ever so softly, she began to hum. It was a melody as old as the night itself, a song passed down through the ages, a song of longing, of homecoming, a lullaby of the stars. As she hummed, the fireflies joined in, their golden lights flickering in perfect rhythm. The trees swayed gently, rustling in harmony. Even the water of the Mirror Lake rippled slightly, carrying the song across its surface. The little star pulsed once, twice, and then, with a quiet, trembling breath, it shone. Not just a flicker, not just a glow. A bright, steady light, warm and pure, like a beacon in the night. The sky above seemed to notice. A soft wind stirred the surface of the lake. The stars reflected in the water shimmered, as if answering the little star's call. And then gently, the little star rose, slowly at first, then higher and higher, lifted by an invisible current, carried toward the sky. Alera watched, her heart full, as it drifted up until it was nothing more than a tiny flicker among the thousands of others. And then finally it was home. A new story begins. Alara sat by the lake for a long time, gazing at the sky, watching the stars twinkle in silent conversation. She was only a storyteller, a simple woman with silver hair and a voice that carried through the wind. But tonight, she had helped a star remember how to shine. She smiled, closing her eyes, letting the quiet hum of the night surround her. And somewhere, far above, the little star twinkled brightly, watching over her just as she had watched over it. Far away, in the village of Starwood Hollow, dawn began to touch the horizon. Lanterns flickered out, replaced by the first light of morning. A new day was beginning. A new story waiting to be told. But for now, all was peaceful. All was quiet, and somewhere in the heavens, a tiny star shone a little brighter. Alara sat by the mirror lake for a long time, watching the sky, where the tiny star she had carried now twinkled softly among its brothers and sisters. The night around her was still, filled only with the hush of the wind in the trees and the soft lapping of water against the shore. The fireflies still flickered in slow, sleepy patterns, their golden glow blending with the silver-blue shimmer of the stars above. For a moment, she simply listened. The world was quiet, wrapped in peace. And then, ever so gently, she rose. Her bones ached slightly from the long journey, but it was a comforting ache, the kind that comes from a day well spent. A story well told. She pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders and turned toward home. The way back to Starwood Hollow stretched before her like a soft ribbon winding through the hills. The grass whispered beneath her feet, and above her, the sky seemed to hum a quiet melody, as if the stars themselves were thanking her. She smiled, and so, step by step, she made her way home, carrying the memory of the little star's light inside her heart. The sleeping village. By the time Alara reached the village, the first hints of dawn had begun to touch the horizon. Starwood Hollow was wrapped in slumber, its cottages nestled close like children beneath a warm blanket. The lanterns that lined the cobble streets had grown dim, their flames flickering softly as they prepared to rest with the coming of daylight. She walked slowly through the quiet streets, past the baker's shop where the scent of rising dough lingered in the air, past the tailor's window where half-stitched quilts waited patiently for morning hands to finish their patterns. Everything was peaceful. Everything was waiting. Alara's little round cottage stood at the edge of the village, its windows glowing faintly from the embers of a fire she had left burning. The vines that curled along its walls rustled in the breeze, and the lavender in her garden swayed gently, filling the air with its sweet, drowsy scent. She stepped inside, sighing softly as the warmth of home wrapped around her. The wooden floor creaked underfoot, a familiar, welcome sound. She set down her pouch, the one that had once carried the little star, and ran her fingers over its silk fabric. Empty now, and yet it still felt full, not with weight, but with something else. A quiet magic, a lingering whisper of the journey she had taken. She set the pouch by the window, where it caught the last fading stars before the sky turned to morning. And then, ever so gently, she sat in her rocking chair, pulling a warm woolen blanket over her shoulders. The chair creaked as she swayed back and forth, back and forth. She closed her eyes, and in the hush of her little cottage, as the village of Starwood Hollow slowly woke to a new day, she drifted into sleep. A soft awakening. When Elara woke, the sun had already risen, casting golden light through the lace curtains of her window. The world outside was waking too. Children's laughter echoed down the cobbled streets. The scent of fresh bread drifted through the air. The gentle clatter of teacups and the murmur of voices spilled from doorways as the village slowly came to life. Elara stretched, feeling the warmth of the morning sun on her face. Her body was rested, but her heart still carried the hush of the night, the memory of the little star floating home. She rose from her chair and moved to the window, letting her fingers trace the rim of her teacup from the night before. And then she paused. For just beyond the glass, nestled in the folds of her pouch where the little star had once rested, there was something new. A tiny silver feather. It was no bigger than a petal, its edges shimmering softly as if woven from the threads of moonlight itself. Elara picked it up, turning it gently between her fingers. It was light as air, cool against her skin, and when she really listened, she swore she could hear something. A whisper, soft as the wind, distant as a dream. She smiled. The stars had left her a gift, the star-born visitor. That evening, as the sun dipped below the hills and the sky darkened once more, Elara lit the lantern on her porch and settled into her rocking chair. Villagers passed by, offering warm greetings as they made their way home, and children lingered by the fence, waiting for a new story. But tonight, Elara did not tell them one. Tonight, she simply watched the sky. And as the first stars blinked awake, she wondered. What had left the silver feather? What had whispered from beyond the sky? And most of all, was her journey truly over, or was a new story just beginning? She rocked slowly, her chair creaking in time with the evening breeze. The village of Starwood Hollow settled into its nighttime hush, and the world drifted once more towards sleep. Above, the stars twinkled softly, and somewhere far beyond the sky, something whispered back. The silver feather lay in Elara's hands, light as air, cool as the breath of night itself. It shimmered in the lantern's glow, its edges glowing faintly, as though spun from moonlight and woven with the quiet hush of the heavens. Elara turned it over carefully between her fingers, feeling a soft pulse of warmth at its core. It was no ordinary feather. It was a whisper from beyond the sky. She rocked slowly in her chair, listening to the hush of the night around her. The village of Starwood Hollow was slipping into slumber, the glow of lanterns dimming behind frosted windows. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called, its voice drifting through the lavender-scented air like a lullaby. Elara let out a long, slow breath. This feather was a message, and messages, she knew, were meant to be followed. The path of starlight. She rose from her chair, tucking the feather carefully into the folds of her shawl. The wooden planks of her porch creaked softly underfoot as she stepped into the night. The path beyond her cottage was bathed in silver blue light, the stars above casting their gentle glow upon the dewy grass. faint mist curled through the trees, swirling lazily around the roots like a sleepy tide. She walked slowly, her pace unhurried, each step as soft as the drifting wind. The hush of the night wrapped around her like a warm blanket, carrying the scent of damp earth and blooming jasmine. The silver feather pulsed faintly against her heart, guiding her forward. The village faded behind her, swallowed by the rolling hills and shadowed woods. But she was not afraid. She was following a story, and stories, she knew, always led exactly where they were meant to go. The whispering glade. After a long, dreamy walk, the trees began to thin, opening into a small, hidden glade. The air here felt different, softer, heavier, filled with something Elera could not quite name. The grass shimmered faintly, as though dusted with stardust. Fireflies drifted in slow, spiraling patterns, their golden glow blending with the silver mist that curled along the ground. And at the very center of the glade, resting in the hollow of an ancient willow tree, was a pool of water no larger than a crater. A pool that reflected not the sky above, but something else entirely. Elera stepped closer, kneeling at the water's edge. The surface was impossibly smooth, untouched by wind or falling leaves, and within its depths she saw not her own reflection, but a vast expanse of deep indigo, filled with swirling constellations and drifting celestial lights. A reflection of the sky, but not the sky above. No, this was something more, something beyond. Her fingers tightened around the silver feather. She understood now. This was a door made of stillness and starlight, a door that could only be opened by a whisper, the lullaby of the stars. Elera closed her eyes, letting the hush of the glade settle deep into her bones. And then, ever so softly, she began to hum. It was a song as old as the wind, as quiet as the turning of the seasons, a lullaby passed down through generations of storytellers. A melody woven from the hush of sleeping forests and the glow of distant stars. The air around her seemed to listen. The fireflies slowed their drifting dance, their golden light pulsing in perfect rhythm with the song. The silver mist curled closer, wrapping around her in gentle spirals. The trees swayed ever so slightly, their leaves rustling in harmony. And then, the pool of water shimmered. The reflection of the unknown sky rippled softly, like the surface of a pond touched by a single drop of rain. And from its depths, a figure began to emerge. The Keeper of Dreams. Elera watched as the water parted, as a presence drifted upward from the celestial reflection below. It was neither shadow nor light, neither old nor young. It was something softer than all those things, something woven from the quiet space between waking and sleeping. Its form was shifting, weightless, draped in flowing layers of deep indigo and silver mist, and though it had no true face, Elera felt its gaze upon her, warm and kind and filled with knowing. The Keeper of Dreams. Elera had spoken of such beings in her stories, but never had she thought to meet one. For a long moment, neither spoke. The night held its breath, and then, ever so gently, the Keeper reached out a hand. In its palm, resting lightly, was another silver feather identical to the one Elera had carried. A gift, a piece of the sky itself. Elera hesitated only a moment before reaching out, her fingers brushing against the feather's cool, silken surface. The moment she touched it, warmth bloomed in her chest, filling her lungs with the scent of distant rain, of forgotten lullabies, of dreams whispered in the quietest hours of the night. A soft voice, neither spoken nor heard, but simply felt drifted through her mind. Tell our stories. And then, the Keeper was gone. The pool stilled. The glade fell silent once more. Elera stood in the hush of the trees, the new feather resting in her palm. The stars above twinkled softly, and somewhere, far beyond the sky, the whispers of the Keeper lingered, a story yet to be told. Elera returned to Starwood Hollow with the feather tucked safely in her pouch, its quiet magic pulsing against her heart. She did not tell the villagers what had happened. Not yet. Some stories, she knew, were meant to be held close for a while like seeds, waiting for the right season to bloom. But she also knew this. One night soon, beneath the hush of a sleeping sky, she would sit upon her porch, gather the village children at her feet and tell them a new tale, a tale of silver feathers, of dream keepers, of a door made of stillness and starlight. And as they listened, their eyes growing heavy with sleep, the stars above would shine just a little brighter, whispering their quiet thanks to the woman who had always told their stories.